For me, the single biggest story today, the single biggest revelation, and I know that for people outside of the Twitterati, for people who are not members of the media, this always maybe seems like it's a bit of inside baseball, and we get much more excited about what's going on at Twitter than people who are just living their lives and not engaged in the daily media battles may. But remember that the Twitter policies in 2020 and the collusion between the intelligence community and the FBI and the woke left-wing lunatics who were making the decisions at Twitter probably cost Donald Trump the election. And I'm not saying, I want to be very clear about this, that there aren't other things that you could point to as what happened in 2020. Even all other things being what they were, all other situations of how the votes were being counted and the rules changed and anything you think happened in 2020, even just all that staying the same, if the Hunter Biden suppression, laptop suppression does not take place, I think you probably have Donald Trump winning a second term. And this is why, obviously, it was so important to the FBI and the deep state elements within it. And yes, to be clear, I was on Sean Hannity's show last night with Pete Hegseth guest hosting, and this came up. There is a faction, there is a cabal within the FBI that is obviously very ideologically motivated and mobilized. It's not every FBI agent, but this is true of all these institutions that are corrupted and that are weaponized. Not every person who is there agrees with it, and many are actually patriots who completely disagree. But when it's coming from the top, the institution is the problem. Right? When the head of the FBI, when the top lawyer at the FBI, who went to Twitter, by the way, when these people are getting involved in politics in a partisan way and using their power and their connections to do so, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And here's the latest on this. The FBI paid Twitter $3.5 million to do its bidding. The FBI would go to Twitter and say, and this is based on an email to Jim Baker. It says, Jim, FYI, in 2019, Scale instituted a reimbursement program for our legal process response from the FBI. Prior to the start of the program, Twitter chose not to collect under the statutory right of reimbursement for the time spent processing requests from the FBI. I am happy to report we have collected $3 million since October 2019, $3,415,000 actually. So, yeah. The FBI is not only telling Twitter in these emails who to ban or who to take down this tweet from or that tweet. The FBI was paying Twitter as though it was an employee in limited regard of the FBI. How much more weaponization of the federal law enforcement apparatus can we see in politics before people realize we need church committee style hearings? We need this to become a major focus of reform, honestly. I mean, the people that are saying we'll tear the FBI down to the studs and start with something new, I understand that sentiment. I get it. But you're just going to build a new FBI, right? Just starting fresh isn't actually going to get you where you want to go. You have to understand, how did it get to this point? How bad is it? How far, how deep does the rot go? And how could you actually turn it around? What could be done? Because the remarkable situation with all of this right now is they involved themselves in the 2016 election in ways that were appalling. You had the head of the FBI, James Comey, Sancticomey. Remember him? You had him stand in front of the American people and say that no prosecutor would prosecute Hillary Clinton for what she did, which just wasn't true. And a whole bunch of federal prosecutors, current and former, raised their hand and said, actually, I would have brought a charge. But it wasn't Comey's job, no matter what. It wasn't his position. It wasn't his role to do that. But after Loretta Lynch had the tarmac meeting, remember that? With Bill Clinton, the husband of Hillary Clinton, after that situation, it would have been too obvious that the Obama DOJ was going to be bailing out Hillary. So Sancticomey, James Comey, comes out. So he involves himself in the 2016 election. And that's entirely separate from the efforts of the FBI to prove Russia-Trump collusion, which, as we know, was a total lie. Everybody knows that now. It was a total lie, a total fabrication. The FBI got a FISA warrant against a Trump campaign advisor who, let me also add, did nothing wrong. As a matter of public record now, it is a fact that Carter Page and Papadopoulos did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. And yet the FBI went after them. And then the FBI continued, even when it should have been very clear that they had overstepped, and got the beginnings of the Mueller special counsel probe. The point here is that in 2016, the FBI involved itself dramatically in the election, in a presidential election here in the United States. Our equivalent here of the secret police, that's what they'd call it in other countries. You know, the federal police, which is really what they are. You know, even the Federal Bureau of Investigation, it's kind of a euphemism. If we're being honest, it's really the federal police. That's what they are. The Fed cops. They're not just doing investigations. And as we found out, sometimes it has nothing to do with criminality. They just decide to tell people, oh, you can't say that. The censorship, the First Amendment chill here from what the FBI is engaged in is mind-blowing. Honestly, it's crazy what has happened here. Do you think regime media will spend any time whatsoever on this? They're not bothered by what happened. They're just upset that they can't keep doing it. It just bothers them that they no longer have the same kind of power to continue on with this. But I'm not sure that Elon is going to be able to see this mission all the way through. I'm concerned. He did this poll, and the poll results came back. There may have been a lot of bots involved in the poll, and there's perhaps a recount brewing. But he said, should I step down from Twitter? And a majority of Twitter users, because unfortunately the Democrats dominate all these spaces. Conservatives, I know, we want to be left alone, and we want to think about leading a good life and, peace and quiet and purpose. And people say, oh, I want to go off grid. I just want to spend more time with the family. Those are all beautiful, wonderful things. The left finds ways to seize the levers of power, and they'll find you wherever you are. If you're going to live in this country, the left is going to want to dictate how you live your life. There is no escape from it. So we can either all engage or we can live our lives by their whim. We can all decide that we're going to push back, we're going to fight back, or they get to call all the terms. They get to make all the determinations. So this FBI Twitter collusion is a massive story. And the reason you're not seeing it covered by anyone except for conservative media is because regime media is all in on this. They're not going to talk about a story that, one, makes it look like all along they've been, because they're all part of this in different ways. They're all involved. They all would lobby Twitter to shut down different accounts. And remember, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, all of them have the same kind of trust and safety woke maniacs determining what you see, what your kids see, what's acceptable national level debate. Imagine what the electorate looks like in this country. Just do this as a thought exercise for a second. Imagine if we truly had an equivalent media for 50% of the country that is Republican and 50% that is Democrat. I mean, in terms of platform access, in terms of number of journos, media organizations, newspapers, cable news channels. What would the country look like? It would certainly be different. Right now we're at this 50-50 razor's edge, and that's with left-wing dominance still of the media. And people say, oh, well, that's not true. Okay, why? Talk radio, yeah, we do well. Talk radio does well. Thank God for it. Thank God for the house that Rush built and that others have been holding up as long as they have. Fox News, great. Yes, we have one channel that reaches a whole lot of people. I know there are some other channels, but they're nascent. They're still in their infancy in terms of audience and reach. And then you sit on the other side and you say, well, look at all the newspapers, CBS, ABC, CNN, NBC, PBS. You go down the list, all of this. And just the dominance alone on YouTube. Again, I know for a lot of you, like, oh, who cares about YouTube? If you have grandchildren, they're on YouTube. That's where they're actually consuming most of their information. And probably on TikTok. If you have teenagers, they're definitely on TikTok. So we can't cede these information hubs to the other side any longer and expect to have decent outcomes. That's really the part of the reckoning, the awakening that I think is going on right now. That and the FBI has very corrupt, scary people at the top of it who are willing to engage in behavior that any reasonable person would see as completely over the line. Rigging elections in America, that's where we are. And the federal police have their fingerprints all over it. And we have to continue to push back on this. We have to continue in this fight because I don't know how, you look at a possible mass amnesty down the road. You look at, if Twitter isn't the first domino to fall, but let's say it falters, you can start to see the end of the First Amendment and the destruction of the Republican Party and conservatism along with it, unless we wake up. And that means now. And that means winning, by the way. It means winning elections.
Maria, we're going to do more than just subpoena them. We're going to change the course of where the FBI is today. If you look, the FBI is, every day we learn something more, that they became, and could private companies become a political arm of them to go after individuals with no repercussions for individuals that know what's happening. But it raises more questions than just Twitter now that Elon Musk has brought that forward. What about Facebook? What about Google? What about the 51 Intel individuals like Clapper, Brennan, and Hayden, former CIA directors, that put their name on a letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was false, that it was Russia? Who asked them to sign this letter? Do these people still have clearances? We're going to subpoena them as well.
That's a start. There you have Kevin McCarthy, who is still seeking to be a Speaker of the House for the Republicans, saying that, well, he's saying the right things about the FBI. I mean, he's talking about what has happened here, what has been going on, which is a good thing. But what are the Republicans going to do about it? I will tell you, and I do not have a good answer for what can be done about this. There is this Republican tendency, and you all know what I'm talking about, to say, we're going to fight. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to take it to the mat. We're going to go all the way. And then when they actually have the power to do something, they go, whoa, hold on a second. Let's meet in the middle. Let's not get too hasty. Let's go along to get along a little bit here. Every time. I don't. Of course, Trump is an exception to this. There are some other exceptions to this. DeSantis is an exception to this in the state of Florida. There are people who go, no, not just going to play the game the way you want me to. Now that I've won, elections have consequences, right? The House election should have consequences for the Democrats. Will that be the case? I was going to say I'm cautiously optimistic, but that's probably too much. I'm just hopeful. I am hopeful. We'll continue to. We had Kevin McCarthy on, and if he becomes Speaker, we're going to invite him back on again to explain what they're actually doing about all of this. And what we can do is try to direct them to get to the truth. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? Some very important things we need to ask questions about. So how does the White House handle all this stuff? How do they try to explain to the American people what we're finding out about Twitter, what we're seeing about the southern border and Title 42's imminent end? It is going to end, right? They can't keep using this thing forever. They're really just trying to drag this out because at some level, both sides, Democrat and Republican, recognize that you get rid of Title 42 and it is, the floodgates are open, more so than they've already been. You've had about 5 million illegals in the last 2 years. And the claim is that Title 42 has allowed for a total of 2 million people to be turned away at the border. Now, I believe Title 42 allows them to be turned away right away under certain circumstances. So you still have 5 million who have entered. I guess you would have had 7 million who were in the country illegally. And keep in mind, all these numbers are something of estimates. There's gotaways. There's a lot of other things that factor into this. But let's start, shall we, with the Hunter Biden laptop situation. And you know, they've done such an effective and dishonest job of trying to convince people that this is about Hunter Biden dancing around in his tighty whities with a boa on and aviators, you know, Biden's aviators, with prostitutes and mounds of cocaine and handguns that he shouldn't be in possession of, taking video of all this stuff while he's doing crack. And, you know, yeah, okay, that's all true. But the reason the laptop was important is that it shows you, after all of the, remember, they ran this campaign of Trump is corrupt alongside the Russia collusion stuff, and you know, Trump was sexually assaulting women. I mean, they tried everything against him. And as we all know. And so now we sit here, we say, okay, they also tried the emoluments clause. Do you remember this? The Washington Post was running stories about how Donald Trump's presidency should end because of a violation of the emoluments clause, which is really just in place so that a foreign country can't say, give the president, you know, $100 million. That's, you know, a violation of the emoluments clause, right? I mean, how many people actually had to look it up and had to take the time to figure out even what it is? It's Article 1, Section 9. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present emolument, office, or title from any king, prince, or foreign state. So you can't accept bribes from foreign sources, period. Obviously, you can't accept bribes from domestic sources either when you're president, or at least you're not supposed to. But, you know, there are some things. If the president is given, you know, some kind of a token of affection by France or something, they give him I don't know. Didn't Obama give an MP3 player with all of his speeches on it to a foreign head of state, as if Obama's unbelievable narcissism? I think, was it, I don't know, maybe did Trump do it? Someone gave an MP3 player with all their speeches on it to a foreign head of state. It was Obama. Thank you, team. I thought so. I remembered that when I said, wow. Why not just give, you know, it's like that family member who gives a painting of himself to the nephews, you know, hey, I thought you could use a painting of me. You know, it's like, wait, really? I don't know about that. But I bring up the emoluments clause because they were making an argument against, and this is going to tie into the Hunter Biden laptop, just to be clear. They were making the argument that Trump was unfit for office and should be removed from office. And I don't mean they as in a couple of loonies on the internet. The Washington Post, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat Party, the apparatus. They were making the argument that because foreigners would buy cheeseburgers and steaks at the Trump hotel, that was an emolument. As in, foreigners buying food at Trump Hotel was buying off Trump and his foreign policy. That was the argument they were making. Just to be very clear, that was really an argument that they were making. Now, contrast that with Hunter Biden, an obvious ne'er-do-well and total mess of a human being who is getting paid millions of dollars, many, many millions of dollars by China. Again, noteworthy, not by Monaco, not even by, you know, Great Britain or a close U.S. ally, by China. He's getting paid millions of dollars. Why? We all know why. Because, hey, Pop, as he calls his dad, we should get on the phone and talk about, you know, X policy or Y policy. There's no record of that. It's just a father talking to his son. The father happens to be the president. So that's how they're buying influence. We are not all idiots. We understand this is what they were doing. The same way that I remember when I used to go on CNN and argue with libs before CNN banned all real conservatives from its air. I said to them, I'll never forget, they sneered at me. I said, let's see if Hillary, this was in 2015, I was saying this, if Hillary loses the election, or I guess end of 2015, early 2016, if she loses the election, you're going to see the Clinton Foundation just crumble. Why? Because the Clinton Foundation wasn't about charity. It wasn't effective altruism, which is what FTX's Sam Bankman-Fried was selling to everybody. Oh, it's not just altruism, it's effective altruism.
Because I'm like really smart, because I went to MIT, and I just I dress like a beach bum all the time, and I just walk around here and give me billions.
Effective altruism. That's what they called it. No, the Clinton Foundation was really just built on being an influence peddling scheme under the guise of a charity. And you know this because what happened to the Clinton Global Initiative after Hillary lost? Kaput, done, collapsed, gone, shut it down. Well, what do you mean? All those foreign governments didn't care about charity anymore? Didn't care about, women's liberation and climate change? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. But they sneered at me. That's ridiculous. The Clintons are all about charity. If there's one thing Bill Clinton loves more than, ladies with short skirts, it is charity. This is what they were telling us. This is what we were supposed to all believe. Hunter Biden had an access peddling scheme set up for his dad. The laptop was the smoking gun proof, and the former legal chief of the FBI became the legal chief of Twitter. The legal chief, when the Russia collusion delusion was used against Trump, became the head of legal at Twitter and was involved closely and intimately with the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop and all these policies that we're seeing that were meant to skew the election for the Democrats. I think it's a big deal. The election was rigged. It was not held under fair circumstances. That is the truth. Now, there's no mechanism that we have to change that right now, but we got to make sure the next time it's not rigged. We've got to hold people to account in every way that we can and get ready for what's going to be, I think, one of the most, I think we're heading into very rocky times here as a country. I really do. Because the left hasn't faced up to any of the ugliness that it has created in politics, any of the distrust that it thrives on. All this talk about saving our democracy. They're absurd. They're the greatest threat to our democracy. The people who say they care so much about our democracy are the greatest threat to it. The people who are supposed to be the guarantors of the First Amendment, the media, are the greatest threat to free speech and freedom of the press. These are the times that we are living in. This is the reality that we see unfolding all around us.